A Shalom, Kahalo Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim, Rakahagadash, and double honor to the apostles, elders, and bishops of Great Millstone. Salutations to all my fellow laborers doing this work in truth and sincerity, risking their lives to do so, and to the scattered hopeful elect across the four corners of the earth, and those among the heathen nations that look like the heathen nations, pursuant to Jeremiah 12:9. So this is not just a so-called black thing. We know that the spirit resonates with our spirit and understands the truth for what it is, and that person is an Israelite. Okay? So, I'm the disciple of Pariam, a follower of Great Millstone, coming to you with a lesson in truth and sincerity. And this is just going to be a lesson in news and prophecy. Before I start, I'm going to read this Copyright Act of 1976. All right, fair use, fair use, fair use. All right, it's basically says fair use is allowance made for fair use purposes such as criticism, comment, news, reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Is permitted by copyright statutes that might otherwise be infringing non-profit, which means I'm not making any money off of this. Okay, educational or personal use tips the balance and favor of fair use. So without further ado, I wanted to play this little snippet from the movie, I believe it was called W. It came out in 2008. And what you're going to see is Dick Cheney, okay? And he's addressing what their plans are for a certain area. You know, we know as West Asia, because there's no such thing as the Middle East. That's a colonial term. You know, that was made up by the British. You know, this Middle East of London, basically, or of England. All right, just like you have like Far East. You know, this is all BS terms. But anyways, so let me go ahead and play this real quick.
Percent of the world's population, we use 25% of its energy. You think Russia and China are going to help us out when they need those resources themselves? 80% of the world's future energy reserves are right here in Eurasia, where the prize ultimately lies. Oil, gas, water. Iraq alone, 10% of the world's reserves. 60 of 80 oil fields are still undeveloped.
And probably another 100 billion gallons in their western desert. They're floating in a sea of oil.
We have bases in more than 120 countries all over the world. We include Iraq, look what happens. We are at the fertile choke point of civilization. The Tigris Euphrates, the biblical cradle. We drain the swamp, like Don says. We rebuild it. We develop its resources to the maximum.
They own it. We run it. Pipelines, sea lanes, their resources finance the reconstruction.
Nexus of power that won't be broken in our lifetime, if we stick to the plan.
So what is our real exit strategy on Iraq, Dick?
And real quick, the one who's asking that question is that Jake Colin Powell. You know, he was in on that meeting.
There is no exit. We stay.
Spoken like a true oilman.
You were part of the plan, Colin, back in the 90s. You backed our dominance in weaponry, space, cyber, electronic. You agreed that we would never allow another military economic rival to emerge against us again. So I don't understand why
Turning
not.
these weapons loose on terrorists like trying to hit an ant in the ass with an elephant gun. We invoke preemption, preventive war, you call it, the right to use nukes whenever we see fit. And I guarantee you, Paul, we will be in a forever war everywhere, 3-4 wars at a time. That's not New World Order. It's a world gone mad. There's got to be some global cooperation here.
Well, no one's against cooperation, Colin, you know that. As long as we're calling the shots.
Which gets us back to reality. Lest we forget, where do you see a lack of American presence? Right in the heart of it all. What's missing? Iran. The mother lode third largest oil reserve in the world. 40% of the world's oil goes right through here, the Strait of Hormuz. Control Iran, control Eurasia, control the world. Empire. Real empire. Nobody will fuck with us again. We're at 5.
So with that, between the two different straits I wanted to mention, let me go ahead and change this screen out right here. So the two different straits I wanted to mention are the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and then you also have the Strait of Hormuz, right? No one's really talking about the Bab el-Mandab Strait yet, because that's the strait that leads into the Red Sea, which also leads into the canal over in Egypt with the Suez Canal, okay, which goes onto the Mediterranean. So between these two straits, you're looking at, I believe it was roughly 25% of the world's oil flow per day, by the way. That's just per day, which is $3 billion per day come from those two straits. And in 2011, 2012, Iran made essentially a pact with Yemen, right, with the Houthis. And if you look and see where Yemen's at, let me go ahead and pull this out real quick. Go to Google Maps. It's lucky. I want to show you what is called Camp Lemonnier. All right. I'll just click on this one right here. All right, so this is the country of Djibouti, okay? That little dot right there, Camp Lemonnier is going to be, make the screen a little bit. It's going to be kind of like in this area, okay? That's Camp Lemonnier area. You have the Bab el-Mandab Strait is right just north of it. And then right across that little strait right there, all this is Yemen, okay? That's all Yemen. All right. So that, essentially, that pact they made with Yemen is they're going to close that strait too. Right. And that's going to be very detrimental. You're already at numbers where other countries are starting to ration supply chains of oil. Okay. But essentially, what this is going down to is the small hats who want to, obviously get control of Palestine because they want another impact called the Azerbaijan-Israel oil pipeline. All right, and it's going to go from Azerbaijan through Turkey. It's going to go down into Palestine area. Okay, let me change out this one right here. And Slack is just kind of showing you a whole bunch of geopolitical information right now, but it's kind of what I did when I was in the military. So with that, it's Azerbaijan controls 40% of Israel's oil, all right, transported through Turkey. And right now, Turkey, Israel is saying that Turkey is the next Iran, right? And Erdogan is facing calls to halt oil flows to Israel, which means, they would have to barter or break up their alignment with Azerbaijan, which Turkey is very friendly with Azerbaijan, right? But then Azerbaijan's going to lose money from that oil coming from the Caspian Sea area down to Israel. So yeah, these things are starting to happen. And so, what you're seeing is Jeremiah's 50 and 45. Let's go ahead and get that real quick. This is Jeremiah 15:45. It says, "Therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord Yahweh, that he hath against Babylon," all right, which is America, "and his purpose, that he hath proposed against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out." This is being Amalek. They're drawing out all these different countries into that area, into the Levant region, okay? And really, they're drawing them out for their own purpose, because they're not really fulfilling, Bible prophecy. They're trying to manufacture. It's a difference. And you have to understand that anytime you see a so-called nation, right, that was formed under suspicious auspices, right, trying to formulate their own Bible prophecy, you should probably think that's call bullshit on that. Okay. So let me go ahead and finish reading. It says, "Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out, and surely he should make their habitation desolate with them." And that's what they're doing. Okay. So I just wanted to show you this little drawing right here, and kind of give you a more understanding, geographically speaking. You can see Azerbaijan right there, and it comes right down through Turkey into Lebanon. You can see the map right here, and these are actual pipelines, and there's some also proposed pipelines as well, which is the black dotted line right there. But I think Turkey's going to probably end up stopping that. But anyways, Russia's going to be a guard onto all these different nations, and the dragons of Arabia will be waking up. But I'll go ahead and get those in here in a little bit. But let's go to Job 5:12. And I also want to mention, Slaki, some of these drawings that you see here were actually some of the things that was gone over in the schoolhouse. I'll say over in Camp McCall, which is just outside of Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I'll leave it at that. But so some of the things have been discussed and gone over in training scenarios. But anyways, let's go to Job 5:12. It says, he disappointeth the devices of the crafty, so that their hands cannot perform their enterprise. Okay? And when you get that word enterprise, it's Strong's H8454. 8454 is thawashia, is that which is substance, basically undertaking or to catch hold of. Okay. All right. So I want to go to the book of Ezekiel. Chapter 33. And this whole chapter is fire, but I'm going to read 1 through 12. And this is the watchman's duty. Okay. It says, "Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, speaking to the children of thy people, and say unto them, when I bring the sword upon a land, if the people of the land take a man of their coast and set him for their watchman, if when he seeth the sword come upon the land, he blow the trumpet and warn the people, then whosoever heareth the sound of the trumpet and taketh not warning, if the sword come and take him away, his blood shall be upon his own head." It says, "He heard the sound of the trumpet and took not warning, his blood shall be upon him. But he that taketh warning shall deliver his soul." It says, "But if the watchman see the sword come and blow not the trumpet, and the people be not warned, if the sword come and take any person from among them, he is taken away in his iniquity. But this blood will I require at the watchman's hand. So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word at my mouth and warn them from me." All right, because that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to sigh and cry, right? And speak this truth unto our people. So when at verse 8 says, "When I say unto the wicked, O wicked man, thou shalt surely die, if thou dost not speak to warn the wicked, from his way, that wicked man shall die in iniquity, which is sin stacked upon sin, right? But this blood will I require at thine hand. So nevertheless, if thou warn the wicked of this way, of his way, to turn from it, if he do not turn from his way, he shall die in his iniquity. But thou hast delivered thy soul. So therefore, O Son of Man, speak unto the house of Israel. Thus ye speak, saying, if thou transgression and our sins be upon us, and we pine away in them, how should we then live? So say unto them, as I live, saith the Lord power, I have no pleasure in the death of the wicked, but the wicked turn from their way and live. Turn ye from your evil ways, for why will ye die, O house of Israel? And verse 12 says, therefore, the Son of Man, say unto the children of thy people, the righteousness of the righteous shall not deliver him in the day of his transgression. As for the wickedness of the wicked, he shall not fall thereby in the day that he turneth from his wickedness. Neither shall the righteous be able to live for his righteousness in the day that he sinneth. So, we got to do. That's why it says, faith without works is death. Okay? You can't just say, oh, I'm saved. All right? So, you have to ask yourself, why are we in this predicament? Well, it's very simple. All right? These Amalekites are still around today, known as the small hats. Okay? And so King Saul, in his disobedience to carry out the Lord's commandments, when you look at, remember Samuel had told King Saul that he was to kill King Agag, the Amalekite, in 1 Samuel 15, I believe 1 through 3. That's why we're in this predicament today. Okay? But let's go down to Ezekiel 38. And this is, we're in these times right now, okay? Where it says, let's go read down. It says, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince, all right? That prince, that word goes into Ra'ash, all right? Of Meshech and Tubal, and prophesy against him. And when you look at the ancient map of Gog, it's right there in Russia, okay? And say, this thus say the Lord power, or Yahweh, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, chief prince of Tubal. It says, I will turn thee back and put hooks in thy jaws. And, right now, Russia is, they're trying to be diplomatic about these things. But, at some point, he's going to turn to his old ways and say, man, fuck it. All right. It says, and I will bring forth in all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, and all of them handling swords. And it lists all the countries right here: Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya, with them all with shield and helmet. And when you go right here to Gomer, all right, Gomer goes into the house and the bands of Togarmah and the north quarters of his bands. And that's going into Turkey, okay? And many people with thee. And, it's funny because I remember being in Turkey not too long ago, a couple of years ago, and the whole situation with Israel. And, there was a lot of, I would say, you could say, pro-Turkish propaganda that I saw in newspapers, or just like, people kind of, graffitiing type stuff right there in Istanbul that actually showed, that, hey, they do not like the small hats, okay? Anyways, be thou prepared to prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company, that area as assembled, and thee, and be thou as a guard unto them. And that, boom, that's, the Russians being a guard unto all these nations, okay? And then also right now, what you have, it's lucky, let me pull this up right here, is this right here, this map. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. This map right here is actually the Ben Gurion Canal. And this was proposed a while back. Ben Gurion was one of the first prime ministers of Israel. Essentially, that right there where it says Gaza Strip on the top right side is what they want to go ahead and flood and create a canal to essentially choke out the Suez Canal. But really, if you think about it, for the whole Greater Israel project, right, that we got to keep talking about, is they would have both those canals, okay, and really have dominant control of all that region, all right. Again, trying to manufacture Bible prophecy, and this is not so, all right. And it shows you right here. It says, you kind of see it right there. So it says this is a 5-year project aims to alter global trade routes by linking Eilat to the Mediterranean via the Negev Desert. So yeah, so that's just kind of showing you the whole Mediterranean right there. But also, the other thing is going with Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia is kind of upset right now because, they've been targeted by Iran, right? And so that's leading up to they're concerned with continued attacks and warns of future escalations, all while trying to seek security guarantees with the U.S. So essentially, it's going to lead to the dragons of Arabia waking up to their former selves, and they're going to start all teaming up together, all these different Muslim countries. Because Arabia was much larger than just Saudi Arabia, okay? It included Yemen, Oman, and all these other Gulf nations, okay? And I think you're going to see them putting their differences aside to at some point, everyone's going to be turning against, the horde that rides of the beast, okay? And that's being Babylon. But let's go to Second Esdras. I'm in the wrong one. Slacky, let me go back. I need this one. So let's go to Second Esdras, chapter 15, verse 28. And it reads, "Behold, a horrible vision, and the appearance of them from the east." All right. I'm going to go ahead and read up to, I believe, verse 31. It says, "Behold," Slacky, verse 29, "wherein the nations of the dragons of Arabia shall come out with many chariots, and the multitudes of them shall be carried as the wind upon earth, and that all they which hear them may fear and tremble. Also the Carmenians, raging in wrath," which is the Iranians, right, "shall go forth as wild boars of the wood with great power, and shall they come and join battle with them, and shall waste a portion of the land of the Assyrians. And then shall the dragons have the upper hand, remembering their nature, and if they shall turn themselves conspiring together in great power to persecute them." So, these things are coming to pass. The men of Great Millstone have been, preaching this for quite some time. The apostles and the elders, the bishops and the elders have been preaching this quite some time. And they're taking to pass, and it's beautiful to see all these things happening. All right. But also, I want to go ahead and lastly kind of show you this little article. It's lucky. Let me go to my Chrome. So this is an article by Zero Hedge. Okay. Close this out right here. Cancel. I'll just make that full size. It says IRGC, which is Iranian Guard leaders. No, that's not it. Trying to find the one where they talk about Russia. Anyways, they have an article that talks about how Russia just recently met with the IRGC and that how they're looking to back them, as their strategic partners. So, anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and put that one on the lesson, and I'll go ahead and upload it when I find once I find it. And I just want to say I pray this lesson has been edifying. Kwam Yasharallah, Shalom. Until next, and Ba Ba Ba. Shalom.